All right, everybody, welcome. It is about 10 o'clock in the morning on the 28th day of January, and I would like to welcome all of you to class this morning. We have a special guest, and I'm excited to do this. This is a great day because we've got a couple of guest speakers with us today. The first is our local home inspector, and the second will be our home warranty professional. Uh, but uh, to start out, I want to introduce this young man. Um, Really great dude. As you can see on the screen, he is with Inspectra Services. This is Benji Ramsey. And Benji's been a home inspector for a few years. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Bob Madewell. He was actually, Bob's one of his mentors. And so Benji does it right. He covers both sides of the river. And without anything further, Benji, right to you, big guy.
All right. Well, hello again, Ryan and Phyllis. I saw somebody else popping in. It looked like it said honey.
You got Honey and you got Anista.
All right. Well, hello to you guys too. Um, like you said, my name is Benji Ramsey. I'll just give you a quick bio. I'm 44 years old. From Marion, Illinois, lived in Indianapolis from 2001 to 2016 late. I had a multimedia company there, so I'm a web designer, graphic designer. I actually still do a lot of business cards for realtors.
Hey, you know what's funny, Benji?
I am
Ryan is a graphic designer too.
all right. So anyway, I did that, and then I was also a touring VJ for 10 years professionally. Can you possibly stick those on for me?
Yes,
Those caps?
sir.
All right. So more or less what I did was I was a video component to festivals, DJs, all kinds of different big events. So I toured professionally for Southern Comfort for 3 years, Anheuser-Busch. I've done Winter Music Conference in Miami multiple times. Played down at Clevelander about 4 times in South Beach. Pretty much all over the United States though. And so that I retired late 2016 and then left all the multimedia aside. Once we moved here from Indy, the job prospects kept declining. So I would look on job boards and the rate for a graphic designer would drop every week. Drop, drop, drop. When I first got here, it was 33 in benefits. I'm like, okay, I can make that work. And then wasn't getting any hits. And finally, I realized it was because the job boards use algorithms now. So if you don't have the right words in the right places, they feed those through software, you don't get a call. So I paid somebody for a resume online, and within 2 hours of posting it, I was getting calls. And interviewed Drury Hotels 5 times, even as far as the vice president, and ended up losing out to somebody that would work for much less money a year and had no experience. And that repeated to a couple of different jobs until finally I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to drive an hour to St. Louis, 2 hours back, and be unhappy and have to wear a shirt choking my neck. So I decided to become a home inspector. I had helped my dad build 2 houses growing up. My wife was a occupational therapist in a skilled nursing facility. So what happens is she will meet a lot of little old ladies whose husbands are in the nursing home and can't repair their houses. And she'd say, I'll introduce you to my husband. He'll come over, fix you all up if you want, and do it on the cheap. So I did that on the side while I was here also. And I decided, you know what, it would be much easier to become a home inspector and I can just call out the problems and I don't have to fix them. So I did. I picked up a few mentors around here. Everybody in our industry here is great. Any inspector that I could call and say, hey, this is what I've seen. I've never seen it before. Can you help me out? They'll help you out. So it's really good to try to meet as many people as you can, because even with me, if you don't use me for an inspection, if you want to call and pick my brain, you are more than welcome. So I love to help people out. I'm a problem solver. So, and just like Phyllis said, it's not all about the money. So, that's kind of a little bit about me. I became a home inspector, jumped right in and built my website, bought my domain name while I was in school. That way, once I got out, I was already Googly ranked and easily findable. And so I did that. And then, slowly started working the Metro East and the St. Louis area. So with with that being said, like a lot of real estate agents, we've all had a job before us. You know, there was something else that we were beforehand, and that actually will help you define who you are now. I spent 8 years in the National Guard, Illinois and Indiana. I've played college football, and then I have, like I said, been a touring VJ. So I have had so many different life experiences. Have any of you guys taken the DISC test yet?
I have.
Have you? Well,
I have
do you
taken it
mind
twice
sharing
actually.
what you scored?
I took it twice. The first time I was a high D, a mid I with low S and C. The second time my D went higher because I embraced who I am and my I dropped a little.
Okay.
But my S and
Anybody
C is
else?
the same.
That actually sounds pretty good though. Um, what's really odd with mine, and I've not really seen this with a lot of people, but I've taken it twice, and mine literally was almost a straight line. And I attribute that just to all the different life experiences that I've had, but it helps me communicate with other people too. So, hold on. Sorry about that. Somebody's trying to call. So, I highly recommend, if you haven't taken the DISC test yet, to take that and obtain a full understanding of it, because that will help you communicate with people. And me being I'm kind of a large, intimidating person, I've been told.
You are.
And so sometimes whenever I will meet a client for the first time, they're automatically kind of standoffish. You know, I'll talk to them on the phone, but I'll meet them in person and they'll kind of be standoffish. But once they talk to me for a few minutes, they realize, okay, it's not what I thought. That, you know, he's not how he appears, blah blah blah. So the way you can talk to your clients and switch gears on an instant is very important. You'll come across people from every walk of life, every kind of personality. You'll come across some that are really strong D's, and you know, once you learn how to talk to those, you're good to go. So I'm going to go over a little bit about the process as far as the home inspection. You know, you guys will go out and you'll show your clients some houses, and then when they're ready to make an offer, you'll make the offer, and then you'll give them, you know, the standard's 3 names. Some give more, some give less. I actually have some realtors, they shouldn't, but they book me directly. But technically you're supposed to give 3. A lot of people will kind of lean over and say, yeah, here's 3, but this is kind of our guy we go to. So get to know everybody, get to know all the inspectors. I don't know of any that are bad here. You know, everybody helps each other out to try to obtain the highest level of service as possible. We all want to look good here. So, you know, that being said, you will then give them the names, and then they will contact the inspector and choose one. And then the inspector will go over dates and times that are available and what sounds good. Most of us now use showing time. Showing time is what we book the schedules with, just like you realtors do. And then a lot of us have super keys. There's still some that don't, and will want you to let them in, but they're becoming very few and far between as far as that. So once the inspection is booked, then we'll find we will most of us use what's called ISM. And when you talk to inspectors, and if you're more curious about it, you know, you can ask them, but it's Inspection Support Network. And so what it is, it's a program that will, let me see if I can just pull it up to show you. It's a program that we put in all the information, and it does all of our scheduling for us. And then it actually sends like a pre-inspection agreement to the client, and it will send them a pay portal where they can pay online as well. We'll pull this up real quick, and then I'll just show you my screen. I apologize. I have satellite internet. I live out in the woods in a log cabin right now.
Yeah,
Right.
guys, I've had Benji do a couple while he's getting a screen up there. I've had him do a couple of houses for me, um, and I've used multiple inspectors, and I only invite the people to talk to you guys that I trust, that I had a great experience with. So just know that. Obviously, I am referring him to you. So when he gets done teaching and he gives you his info, keep him as a resource always. He's
And like I said too, even if you don't use me, you can always call and pick my brain. I don't mind. I firmly believe that every inspector has to eat. I don't want all the jobs. You know, I don't want to be the ball hog, so to speak. But I'm always willing to help anybody out that needs it.
Hey, and
Okay, well, I can't
if
get
you
this to
have
pull up.
anybody that's pretty wild, take Benji out because Benji's like 6'4", and he's like twice as broad as I am, and his arms are like 3 times as big around as mine. Um, so you want that little bit of intimidation factor? Yep, just take Benji with you and tell him don't say a word. Just go, hey, don't say a word. But it's kind of funny.
I'll look over and I can cross one eye, and that freaks people out because they think, man, somebody broke his head and he's still coming at me.
You have to laugh about it, guys. Come on, this is part of your network.
Yeah, I'm a jokester. I'm definitely a jokester. So anyway, it's not going to pull up for me now, but that's okay. So when you are looking for an inspector, though, you want to get somebody that is ASHI or InterNACHI, and that's our 2 main associations. ASHI's more Missouri. A lot of people kind of abandoned ASHI over here. Some are still with it, but we really do InterNACHI because they just provide a lot of continuing education for free. Well, it's included in the fees, but things like that. So definitely get somebody that that's a member of that because you know they're up on the continuing ed and the learning aspect of it. Keep in mind too, there's really none of us are really, we're not deal killers. If we come in and we find a lot of stuff in the house, it's because there's a lot of stuff going on in that house. You know, we're hired to find things. Now, some people in I haven't heard any stories lately, so, but you know, you'll hear of people being an alarmist. Most of us are not alarmists. I'm definitely not an alarmist. I try to maintain a happy, you know, a happy attitude with the client throughout the whole inspection. I don't want to be the one that crushes their dreams. That's kind of, you know, that's up to them to decide. This is too much for me. And then, you know, you guys too as well. You'll have the meeting of the minds with the report and kind of decide if there's just too much to fix or, you know, if it's still a good house. You know, even if I find cracks in the foundation that are bad, I'll say I'm a little concerned. However, let's refer this to a and I'm very hesitant for a structural engineer. If you hear inspectors say structural engineer, you know it's really, really bad. So usually like a foundation specialist, I will refer. But like I said, I keep it light. Like, you know, it's probably nothing, but we want to get an expert in here just to make sure and to then go over any options if repairs need to be made. And so an alarmist would be like, oh my God, you see those cracks right there? You know, I don't know about those, you know, maybe you shouldn't get the house. Nobody's going to be doing like that. So I wouldn't worry about that. But if I've had realtors complain before because they'll say, oh, well, the inspector even said that, you know, there was a light bulb out. Well, if we don't point out things like that, who's to say the client's going to say, well, if he missed that, what else did he miss? So if there is a light bulb out, we'll say, you know, light is inoperable, likely needs to change bulbs, then repair as needed. That way you don't have that doubt in the back of their head, or we don't have that doubt that you know, we missed something. So the clients are usually a lot better off and go along good with that too. So on inspection day, the day before, you'll, with inspectors that use ISN, which is Inspector Support Network, the realtor and the client themselves will get 2 emails. So a few days before, they will get the initial date and time and the credit card application, or not application, but credit card link and the pre-inspection agreement. That will go to the client, and then the agents will get an initial telling of the time in your email. So it'll send you an email and say, hey, such and such inspection is this date for this person. And then the day before, you will get an email as well. The only time you won't get that is if like one of our schedules is just really crazy and we weren't able to get that information in. So during the inspections, clients can come the whole time. I'll tell them that, but I always recommend they come the last hour. I have some realtors that will tell them that too. It's just kind of one of those things. When you're the most undisturbed, you can do the best job. And when, you know, we have a lot of documentation to do. And so by recommending the clients come the last hour, it gives us time to pretty much find a whole bunch of things that if they're there to find, and we can go over them with the client when they get there. So a lot of times the clients will come for the whole inspection and they just kind of stand around, they follow you around, just kind of look at you. Sometimes I have a mother and father, or I'm sorry, a daughter and a father. The daughter's buying the house and they compete for my attention. So all of a sudden I'll hear one yelling, "Hey, did you see this over here? Well, what about this?" And then the other one's over here. That causes a delay in the report when stuff like that happens. So it's always better if you could possibly recommend to them for us, you know, the last hour, but they are welcome to come the whole time.
Hey, Benji, let me jump in here too. Hey, let me
Yes.
give them a hint. So if you have a client who says, I'm going to be there for the entire inspection, you as an agent go as well. Go to the inspection. If the client's going to be there the whole time, you go. And I've done this. Benji and I did this. I did this for Benji when we
Yes, you
found the
did
bullet in the
run
roof.
an interference.
And all your
Yes.
job is to go run interference so that inspector can do what that inspector does and make sure that the family feels like they're part of it, but let Benji do his job.
Yes, and that's
That's that.
very appreciated.
Yeah. So just if they're going to be there, you go. Trust me, it will go much better.
Um, so let's see what else we got here. So
Okay.
as far as other inspections that I can do, a lot of other things require a license. And I'm not big on sewer and septic myself, so I contract all those out. I have the same companies that I use for all of my work. Um, I use Radon Safety Squad for all my radon testing. And a funny thing behind that is I would be doing radon testing myself, but I'm their graphic designer and web designer and have been since they started. So, and they're good friends of mine, so I don't want to walk on their feet. So I just give them the business. But I work with an environmental company up here in Brighton also called EnviroLife. Does all kinds of environmental testing, asbestos, mold, um, air quality. He does quite a few different things, so I use him. Sewer scope, septic. I use specialty, and then I use specialty pest control for the termite and wood destroying insects. And they are really, 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 really good people to work with. I've met like Bob. I know Bob's termite guy, Alan. He's a great guy. You know, I don't really know of a lot of really bad companies here. So whoever you decide to use and go with, you know, ask around for a few recommendations. Make sure you know good people that are using them. But like I said, we have a really good group of inspectors on this side of the river.
Hey, Benji. So if I hire a home inspector, I'm going to load this question for you. So if I hire a home inspector, say it's you, say it's Bob, say it's the Worms, anybody, I'm a client and I say, hey, Mr. Home Inspector, I'm going to hire you, but I want a radon test. I need a termite inspection. I need a full home. I need a sewer scope. Do I need to call anybody other than my home inspector
Nope. You
and the
shouldn't. I can't speak for
Yeah.
everybody else, but for as far as me, no. You call me, we discuss what you want, I take care of it, and I don't mark up prices. I charge exactly what you can go to their website and charge. It's not all about the money. Um, but I will do that. You pay me, I pay them. So simple as can be, and then that way I'm in charge of the reports. So you're not chasing reports from them. So they all owe them to me. I get them on time, and then you get them on time. So as far as the testing goes, usually environmental tests, they're done during the inspection. Termite, sewer scope, those are usually done during the inspection. Radon is a 48-hour test. So that takes 48 hours, and then usually by that night we'll get the report. Radon testing, and you know, you guys may come across issues where you're with a client and you really don't have an inspector, or you did have an inspector already, and then you may want to go and order these yourself. So with Radon Safety Squad, Radon runs 99. If it's a bigger house with dual foundation or bigger than 2,000 square foot basement, then it runs 150, and then they use 2 units. And the really, really big, like mansion basements, some of those require 3 units. But very, very cheap. I'll make any introductions to any of the other groups that I make for you guys if you want. All really good companies to work for, and if you need them to do something, they will drop what they're doing. Like Radon, there's been times where I've had a client decide at the last minute, oh yeah, well I need to get the radon test, but we're closing in just a couple of days. They will get a monitor in there for me to get that done. And like Specialty, I've called Specialty before, and he's literally gone out to a vacant house at 10 at night to do things for me that had to be done by the next day. So I also work with an HVAC company, Leonard's HVAC. And so a lot of times, especially during the cold months right now, I can't test your AC. So if you know you turn it on and it's blowing cold air, well, yeah, it works, right? No. So I always recommend an HVAC tech go through with a fine-tooth comb, and Leonard's charges $75. So even if the sellers don't want to go through with that, and if you ever see it on one of our reports, we will recommend that they do it too for the $75, but it's very, very, very important. I had clients 3 months ago who there was some kind of fluid leaking, and I said, I want your furnace looked at by an HVAC. Well, the agent didn't feel that that was that important because it worked. And so she called me a few months later, and she said, Benji, she goes, we got an issue, okay? So-and-so in Granite Cities, they moved in, everything was fine, then all of a sudden their heat doesn't work and they don't have heat and they can't afford to fix it. And I said, okay, let me pull up the report and let me see. And I'm looking through there, because if I mess up, I will take full responsibility for it. I've taken responsibility for things that I didn't really mess up, but I was in, and I'm gonna shelf that story for you, but I'm gonna tell you that. So what happened was, there was a house we did, and my guy came in to sewer scope it, and there was no cleanouts. And it actually, every other house was on sewer, but it was on a septic, and it was in Troy. And so he said in his report, put in a cleanout, or and I will come back and I'll scope it for free. Well, it actually was a septic system. So it ended up, once she moved, she didn't get that done, and then she moved in, bathroom backed up, and had another company come out and look it over, and then they went, found the septic, and then scoped it through the septic and found it was a collapsed line. So the collapsed line would have been found if they had put in a clean out. However, though, I was hired to find problems before they happened. And so I ate that $3,800 bill for that repair. Even though I feel like if she had the clean out put in, it would have solved the problem. He would have figured it out. He would have found it, blah, blah, blah. But I was hired from the get-go. Here, you find your septic guy, whatever, and check it out, find what's wrong. So, you know, I will take full responsibility on things like that. Even if they don't appear my fault, it was my fault, because I was hired to do it and I failed. So, so always find people that will not leave you high and dry if you come into a problem. Let's see what else we got here. Do you guys have any questions? Are there any questions about anything home inspector related? I know, like I went through a lot of stuff with Jalen during our inspection that, you know, it was, you know, his first house, and so and kind of showed him around a little bit. But I know you gotta have a lot of questions about this stuff. So fire away if you got anything.
Hey, how many different kinds of inspections do people normally ask for when they buy a house?
On average, 4 total, which is the house, radon, termite, and sewer. And I recommend those big time, because with the radon, if the house ends up having radon, mitigation system is about $900. And I've actually done a house on is it Mary Todd? I think it was Mary Todd in O'Fallon, and the house was built in 2002. And the sewer scope found 12 feet underground, 20 feet away from the house, a break in the line, and that break alone cost $13,000 to fix, because they, you have to get permits, they have to open the ground up, they have to put supports to hold the ground from closing up. So it was a big ordeal, but that's why we do it. So the buyers aren't stuck with that. The sellers paid for it, and everything closed great.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you, how far out can someone come back on an inspection and say, oh, you didn't find these termites, or you didn't, or there's a problem, like you were describing with the HVAC? So
Right.
yeah.
That it would kind of be dependent on the situation. Every situation would be different. I really can't put a time on that.
Okay.
Usually a few years, or with whatever's going on, there's a natural order of decay on things if they're not maintained. If you got a hole in your roof, the sheathing in the roof isn't going to be rotten right off the bat, but if it leaks and leaks and leaks and leaks, it could rot in weeks, it could rot in years. So it would all depend. But once that happens, though, you can revisit it. Contact the inspector and say, hey, such and such so long ago, this was in the report, or this wasn't in the report. I don't know. It's just that's just very kind of vague, and I don't have an exact answer because it can vary. But always, anytime you have a question like that, follow up with the inspector. We always keep copies of our reports on us, and we can look that up, go back on it, and see what's going on. So usually after a few years, though, it's no one really pursues after a few years, because so much can happen in that time.
So I've had, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I recently I've had two inspection kind of issue things happen with different outcomes on them. So like that, the first one actually is my son's home, and he had all the inspections and stuff done on this home, and the disclosure, this was about the disclosure actually. The disclosure did not disclose that they had water issues down in the basement, and it was not found on inspection either. They also didn't know that, but like, I think like maybe like a year into owning the home, like they had like massive water down in that basement. They were actually successful in court getting that paid for. Which, was interesting, because I had basically heard that those things usually are really hard to prove. But as I found out, it really wasn't all that hard. But this one that actually just happened this last weekend, a client of mine, actually, this was, so this client bought a home, and the only inspection that they waived was the sewer inspection. And, but I got a call from them the other day, and they just paid $16,000 to a company because they had a massive main intrusion, like it was collapsed and like all that junk was going on in there. But interestingly enough, they found 3 receipts taped to the back of a water heater from a sewer company that had been doing maintenance on that water line. They had been like rotting it and flushing it or something like that. Yeah. And so I called them, and I'm like, hey, can I get the background on this? How did they initially get in touch with you? What they said was that they didn't have anything going back farther than 2017, and they did not have the original contact with them. But what they did say, normally speaking, I would actually say that that's basically evidence that they knew that they had a problem going on down there.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
the sewer place actually said that in that neighborhood, they have lots of clients that have like routine, just maintenance stuff happening every year, that they go out and that they don't necessarily have problems. Is that like just knowing that they do like that, that yearly maintenance thing that they do on that sewer line, is that evidence of knowing that you have a problem?
I would say yes, because I have never heard of anyone getting maintenance like that unless there's a problem. And what that would be when you get tree roots in there, people run the augers.
Mhm.
You know, there's a company that runs an auger, so it's like a snake with blades on it, and it cuts that stuff out. That's routine maintenance on a sewer system. So I would say yes. You know, they know
So
something's
you would
going
say
on.
that
People
that's
don't
evidence
just
of that?
go out. I would think so. I mean, it appears to be
Okay.
evidence to me. You know, you don't just sit there and say all of a sudden, oh, hey, I got this money burning in my pocket. Let me pay this sewer company
Yeah.
just to do some stuff to our line. So it's very odd.
Okay.
I
So
would say, yeah.
how would you suggest that I move forward with that to try and get them some compensation for that $16,000 that they just paid?
Well, that would be a regular court case. You know, small claims court's much less than that.
Small claims.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I would do a court case. I would talk to an attorney first and make sure he thinks he's going to win. I would think you would win,
Okay.
but I'm not an attorney, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, that's just something I don't ever hear and I've never ordered that. You know, oh, recommend maintenance on your sewer line. So
Okay.
my guess
So
would
this guy
be
might be
the ones
covering his own butt in this.
correct. And if I would
Okay.
talk to him again and ask what kind of maintenance they're doing. Are they augering? Are they water jetting? You know, there's, I mean, a pipe
It
drains
says a
water.
rod and flush. Yeah.
A rod and
It
flush.
says rod and flush.
So that almost sounds like, you know, when you push a rod in a tube, you're clearing something. So it almost sounds like
Right.
that they've been having some kind of blockages. So yeah,
Okay.
so I would go back to the company and I would try to get details on exactly what they did, if there was anything else than the rod and flush. But
Okay.
yeah, that just doesn't sound right to me, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only that, but I
So I would
happen to know
definitely.
that they really seriously overpaid for that too. We had like two sewer. It really does pay to like check out different people and stuff and get estimates, by the way, because we recently
Absolutely.
sold a flip, and on the first buyer, we found like a sewer issue in there. So we had to have that dug up and replaced, blah, blah, blah. Then that sale actually fell through. And then we had to get it under contract again. And when they did a sewer inspection in there, they found another break a couple feet out from the one that we already fixed. And that had to be dug up and replaced and that kind of stuff. But the total on like both of those, like totaled, I think like maybe 7,000. And I mean, so 60,000, like that's a ton of money. I'm like thinking, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, get estimates from different places.
Yes.
That helps.
And I think
Okay.
that your story reinforces the fact that that sewer scopes are very important, very important.
And yeah.
Especially in Granite City, especially. I found more problems there than anywhere. But
Really?
houses that are you know, younger than or older than 1980s. You know, you had a lot of clay tile pipe and things like that. If there's a lot of big trees in the yard, things like that. I always run a ton of water when I inspect a house, but I always recommend the sewer scope just in case, because like I said, that house that had the $13,000 dig up in the front yard, it wasn't clay tile pipes. It was all PVC, but where the 4-inch coupled to the 6-inch, they didn't seal it right and tree roots got into it. So tree roots can pretty much get in anywhere that's not totally bonded as far as PVC. So, but talk to the company, and then find if you have an attorney friend, I would recommend a friend first, and then go to somebody that's going to charge you per minute.
Oh yeah.
Attorneys they want their cut too.
Okay.
How about you, Phyllis?
All
You got
right.
any
Thank
questions?
you.
You're very welcome. Phyllis, Ryan, you got any questions?
Well, I was going to say on the sewer, I don't know if the Illinois occupancy inspections are as detailed or how those work on the Illinois side, but I know with one of our contracts, like the occupancy inspector came in after we had done the inspection, and I think we had found a couple of small roots or something in the sewer line already. But then they came in and found a completely different issue in the occupancy inspection. Like, I don't think it was a super serious one, but they required that the seller fix it. So like the week before closing, they were in there tearing up the floor in the basement and to do something. And I'm not sure exactly what it was, but that's kind of a nice little double check when the occupancy inspector comes in there to make sure on top of the inspection.
Do you know what that was for sure? Because usually occupancy, they're looking for safety issues.
Yeah, I don't.
Only...
And the other agent was a realtor too, and she's like, I don't really know what's going on, but the occupancy needs them to come in here and fix this. I think it was like a $3,000 job for them to complete.
Yeah, that's odd. Now there's some occupancy that are kind of a joke, and I don't know if they have multiple, but I know in Granite City, every time that I'll find a house that passed occupancy, but there's always at least 3 electrical things that I find that they just passed, and sometimes they say they're in there for 10 minutes and they're out. So
I live in Granite. I believe that.
And they're super fast. I mean, I had an agent and I were kind of going back and forth, and I said, I can't believe this passed. And they're like, oh yeah, well it did. And I'm like, well, and I showed her all the different things. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to him about it. I didn't hear anything else. I'm guessing that the guy finally said, okay, it's wrong. But some of them are really thorough, and it just depends on where they are. But normally, like I said, it was a thing of safety issues. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the football player Marcus Allen. Played for the Raiders, played for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he lived in O'Fallon for the last 5 years. And I did his house before he left. And he called me 3 days later, and he's like, Benji, when you were in my attic, did you see any screens? No, sir. You had some Christmas decorations up there, but that was it. Occupancy made him buy all new screens. He didn't have a single screen in a window.
Belleville's really tough like that.
Yep.
And so he had to replace every single screen, which for him, that was a drop in the bucket. That was no problem. But, for anybody else, that would have been a lot of money.
Belleville city inspections are really tough.
Yeah. So I find that mostly, most of your occupancy they're looking for GFI things. They might look in your electrical panel. Some of them don't, but if they're good, they do. And then handrails, the balusters around the back deck, things like that. That's what they're mainly looking for. And maybe sometimes if the deck's fastened to the house correctly. But as time progresses, it appears that they're getting a little bit more vigilant in what they do, which is good. It is another set of eyes.
Yeah, that must have been a super detailed one because they also made her replace like a couple of the outlets with I don't know enough about it, but they made her replace. Well, yeah, I guess so, and update those as well.
Yeah, so with GFIs, there's certain areas that they're mandated in, and so if you're in like the kitchen, if they're over the countertops, they must be GFI protected. Now, when I say protected, you can have one GFI and then have all the other ones that are connected to it, and they'll all trip as if they're GFIs. They're all protected. And when I say GFI, it's a ground fault interrupter. So it's the receptacle that has the little built-in breaker buttons on it. And so he so
Benji, I'm going to
the
stop sharing
other
so you can
areas,
see everybody.
okay,
There, I bet you can see everybody now.
I just see myself and I see
Oh.
you.
Oh, that's cool.
Still just you.
Oh, sorry, man. I
You're
put it
good.
up on grid
So,
view.
okay, well maybe everybody else can see. Oh wait, there we go. Oh, you have to push the, okay, well it shows how much I know Zoom.
That's all right.
I'm scrolling over now, I can see everybody. There you are. Okay, so if a receptacle is within 6 feet of the sink, it must be a GFI. If you have an unfinished room in the basement, all of the receptacles must be GFI protected. Same thing with the garage, and then in a laundry room, the washing machine receptacle must be a GFCI as well. Anytime any receptacles outside, those have to be GFCI protected. And like I said, that's a lot of what your occupancy inspectors are looking for.
Bathrooms too, right?
Say again?
Bathrooms?
Yes. And the main thing with a bathroom is it's because it's within 6 feet of the sink. If you have one, if you've got a bathroom and it's a big bathroom and there's a receptacle that's not 6 feet from the sink, no, it does not have to be. It's just that proximity to water.
Hey, Benji, let me ask this question. So if I bring Benji Ramsey Inspector Services out and I have reached out on a website to county or city zoning occupancy,
Okay.
right? And most of the municipalities actually have the checklist that they're going to check online for you to view. If I bring that and I show it to you or hand it to you as you start your inspection, you can take a look and go, yep, that will or that won't, based on my opinion, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And most of the time, just from what I see, I can tell you if it's going to pass an occupancy or not. Just, just the few safety issues that I see.
Yeah. And I always tell people do that. Take that checklist and go sit down with that home inspector when they're coming through, and they'll certainly take a look at for you. And they usually do just a courtesy and go, yep. Or, hey, you're going to have a problem here and here, or that seller's going to have a problem here and here. And I brought up pre-listing inspections, and that's typically when I bring that occupancy checklist with me, is when I have an inspector doing a pre-listing, and we can usually save several $1,000s by having that pre-listing inspection. Somebody like Benji come out and take a look and do an inspection for you.
Yes. Yeah. I always tell people that. I say, negotiations start in the thousands and a pre-inspection is in the hundreds. And so you can get a lot more money out of the house if you fix everything, and or if your client fixes everything and doesn't have to mess with the finagling and the haggling with the prices.
Yep. Hey, what is the average cost when somebody has an inspection? Bob, I know you know this. Items identified on a home inspection, what does that typically cost the seller?
Oh, there's a lot of variables in there.
Bob usually tells me it's about $3,000 to $5,000.
Typical stuff. It would all depend on who you had do it. I mean, if you hire out contractors, if you're not qualified to do it, it's definitely going to cost you a lot more money. But I mean, my inspections, they're all over the board. I mean, there's been some where, matter of fact, I'll go 2 days ago, did one in Maryville, and it was going to be about $30,000 to fix that. So the foundation was cracked in 3 sides. It had movement in 3 sides. So the whole thing was just twisting. There was literally gaps on top of the sill plates. There was anywhere from 3 to 5 would be a good average, I would say, but some of them are quite a bit higher than that.
I agree. I agree.
And when we have some that look like that, you know, and you have a client like, oh, this is just this and that, I just got to bite my tongue and say, hey, you know, there's a solution to everything. It's just, you know, can you afford it? I don't say that part, but, you know, just keep the optimism up, for sure.
Nope.
Who else has got some questions? Pick my brain.
Hey, tell them about the bullet in the roof.
Okay. So doing a inspection for Barry over in St. Louis, and I get right up on the roof, and something catches my eye. It's shining, and I get over to it, and it's a hollow point bullet stuck right into the top of the roof, like halfway. And I got down there and looked at it, and you know, pulled it out and looked, and sure enough, I mean, it was a celebratory shot. But you know, when you come in and you're like, okay, here's the clients, and there's a bullet in their roof, you know, who's gonna think good about that? But somehow, when it was all said and done, they wanted to frame it.
Oh, we did. I framed it, gave it to her at
Did
closing.
You? Oh,
I got
awesome.
the other realtor to get it. We framed it. We gave it to her at closing because she thought that was the coolest thing in the world, that her house had been shot.
Yeah, the first one I'd seen with a bullet in the top. I mean, I'd seen some that a bullet had gone all the way through, but you know, not just right in the top was really cool.
Yep. Hey, what's the worst thing you've seen, Benji?
A light switch a foot underneath the shower head. In a shower. A foot underneath it. Yes. And I asked the lady, and it was because the seller was there. And I said, ma'am, has anybody ever been shocked in that bathroom? She's like, no, why? And I'm like, because your switch is right under. Oh, I didn't even realize that. So, and it had been there since the 50s, and apparently nobody had died. But yeah, that was
active.
bad.
That was my
it was live. Absolutely.
Oh wow.
Let's see. Sometimes people will play jokes on us. We get down to crawl space, and there'll be like a realistic Halloween skeleton partially buried. And so you see it in there, and you're just like, okay. But you realize quickly what they're doing. And snakes. I hate snakes, man. I hate them. You know, I may look tough, but when it comes to snakes, I'm not. So I see a snake in the crawl space, and it's like the Bugs Bunny when they run through and jump through the wall, and you see their outline. That's what I feel like when I see a snake. But
really crazy inspection story, actually. So I had a seller. The house was not that big, but like when you walked in the front door, like there was like a smell going on, but I thought it was like the old carpet, you know, could have been the kitchen, although it was pretty clean. But you know, I was like, yeah, we got to do something. So we had it cleaned. We had like, you know, all kinds of stuff done. Anyway, the house goes under contract, and they're doing inspections on the home. So the guy comes out to like do the whole home, like property inspection on it. And he has to get underneath the house, you know, the crawl space in there. And I'm not kidding you. Like all the sewage from that house was emptying underneath the house into the crawl space. Like he had to bunny suit up and everything. And when he like climbed out of there, like he was covered in like sewage and stuff. Like seriously, that was a massive issue. We like everything was over at that point. And this seller actually did not fix it. He's like, oh, I'll just rent it out. Like, what? It was crazy. I've never seen like something that disgusting in my entire life. This guy was covered with stuff. And he threw a snake out. He had like insects on him. It was just this.
Hey, Anissa, did you have a question?
I did. I was just curious how long the process normally takes from start to finish. Like once you arrive at the home, how long does it take for the inspection to, you know, run its course? I know, of course, it's variable upon the size of the home, but for the average, you know, 2-3 bedroom home, how long does it normally take?
Well, and that's going to vary by your inspector also. And I'll be right up front. I'm not a quick inspector guy, so I spend 4 hours on a house. If it's a bigger house, bigger than 3,000 square feet, I may spend 2 or 4.5 hours on it. Most inspectors are about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I can't do due diligence in that time. I feel like I need to dig into things a little bit further, but I'm very detail oriented. So I feel like I need 4 hours to get into that house. And that's one of the reasons why I always recommend, the client come the last hour. That way I'm working for 3 hours, and then they come the last hour. I show them everything I found to that point, and then they still have the best part of an hour to walk around, look around, measure, and do what they want to do.
Okay.
But mine run 4 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Yeah, because that's one thing everybody asks is how long does this take? And you'll hear these horror stories of inspectors take all day on a house. I usually plan a half day. When an inspector is going to do an inspection on a house, I figure a half day right there.
Yes. Yeah, and there's some inspectors that are literally in and out in an hour and a half, and it'll be like a 3,000 square foot Victorian home. I don't know how they do it, but they do. But some do 2-man teams. Like Bob Madewell, he'll do a 2-man team. Ideally, that's perfect, because in that case, one person can run interference with the client if they're talking, if that's needed. But in the other case, one person does one half the report, one person does the other half, and it gets knocked out in half the time. So that's very, very effective. Eventually, I will probably get to that, but I'm not ready to hire just yet.
Hey,
How
on
about
the
you,
inspection
honey?
report.
I heard you think. Say what now?
Well, I was going to let Honey talk.
Say again.
I didn't say nothing.
I know. That's why I'm saying, what about you, honey? You haven't said anything. You haven't said anything.
No, I mean, I understand it. I purchased a home. I didn't really know the ins and outs, so I appreciate you explaining it, but I think it's one of those things that hopefully if you're working with someone like you, you can ask questions.
You guys can call me anytime.
Okay.
You guys can call me anytime in the future and ask me questions. If you think of something once we're off the phone, you'll all have my number when we get off. You can call me and ask me questions.
Yeah.
So my door is always open.
Now that thought itself is supposed
I'm going to bring it back up so you can, so everybody can see it.
To the point of to regulate our minds.
Can everybody see Benji's contact info? So you can capture it. He's a great resource to use. Like I said, he works both sides of the river, and Benji brought up a point to begin with. In Missouri, a home inspector, a dude can go join the association, put a sticker on the side of his truck, and he's a home inspector. So Ryan, this is really important for you because you're going to have these guys, and I can tell you all kinds of horror stories from working out there, working outside in rural Missouri. A guy owned an insulation company, so he was a side gig as a home inspector. So when he came in, what was the one thing that he highlighted throughout his entire report? You need insulation. You need insulation. You need insulation. The R factor is not high enough. That's because that was what he knew. The great part about the side on the Illinois side, or using an Illinois inspector for a Missouri job, is the fact that they do go through formalized training. Can you talk about that training real quick, Benji?
Sure. So our training is it's 150 hours online, and then we must do 10-hour days for a whole week. And usually around here, I did America Home Inspectors Training, AHIT. I highly recommend them. And we did our training at Rankin College over in St. Louis. And so during those 10-hour days, you'll go out and do 5 field inspections with the instructor. And then you take some different tests there. The amount of testing that we had to do, So we have to test as we go through our online classes. Then we had to test from our in-person classes. Then we had to test a final test on our training. Then we had to take the Illinois test, which is the hardest test for home inspectors that there is, which, you know, that's typical for Illinois, but it's good because it keeps everybody on their game and everybody top notch. And, you know, you don't have people not knowing what they're doing, going out there and trying to fake the funk, so to speak. Yeah, it's home inspection, the real estate thing. I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. I really am. I never anticipated it in my younger years, but you know, hindsight, you know, I was wired to do it. You know, wired to go in. I wanted to be a detective, and there's so much yellow tape for Illinois. You either had to work in a private eye firm, you had to a criminal justice major, or work as a detective or in the detective department of the police department, or you cannot be one at all. So I became a house detective. You know, you get to walk in there and say, hey, what are you hiding from me today? It's great. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Hey, Benji, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you spending
Yes,
the
sir.
last hour with us. You guys have his contact info. If not, I've got it. And you can reach out to me and I will provide it to you. He's actually one of my resources. And like I told you, I would not be bringing him on to speak if I did not trust what he has to say. And I would not use him as a referral partner. I've told you guys from the beginning how important your network is. And you can see, because my network includes Benji, and then I have the access to Benji's network as well. So you can see how this just grows, right? So what people are hiring you for. So if you do have a job, you know, reach out to Benji or any of the home inspector that we've talked about. They're there to help you. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stop recording. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to bring Ms. Heidi Goff on from Home Warranty of America, and she's going to explain to you the things that Benji may have said and how it applies to a home warranty. So it's kind of interesting.